Hello and welcome. Nasscom and Nielsen recently did a perception study which looked at what attracted people to the business process management industry, or earlier known as business process offshore or BPO industry. The question that's being asked now is, are people sufficiently enamored of this industry as they were many years ago? If not, why not? And who are the people who are really sticking on and to that extent providing the long-term people capital that this industry needs? That and many more questions have come up thanks to this study, and I'm joined by three people to try and delve into it and understand whether there are some fundamental problems which can be addressed and or cannot be. Raman Roy and Pavan, Vaish and VK Raman, thank you so much for joining us. So Raman, let me begin with you. The sense I'm getting is that at some levels this seems to be discouraging, as in it seems to say that people are not so attracted to this industry, particularly at an entry level. They feel that this is not a long-term career option, and it's seen as something at best which people work in for a few years and then get out.
So that is what, see, the issue is with the perception of that. With the close to 1 million people in the industry, the opportunity obviously is there. I mean, everybody has a boss, and a boss has a boss, and a boss's boss has a boss. And there is a pyramid, and with the rate of growth that we are seeing, there are huge opportunities that exist within the pyramid. One of the things that came out in the study was it was too easy for me to get in. And our hunger for people in this industry, the appetite is so large that yes, it is easy to get in, and what the perception that is coming out is because it is easy to get in, therefore it is not long term. Now there is a mismatch. Now the reaction could be, let's make it difficult for people to come in, or the reaction could be to say that we need to be able to educate the people on what the future is. Because again, the same study shows that beyond 4 years, the people who've had exposure and who've cut their teeth into it, they see a huge long-term career. I run out of car spaces for the number of cars that my employees bring in, and a few months ago there were actually agents who were taking calls and didn't even dream of having a two-wheeler, leave alone a four-wheeler car. So I think we are not doing a good enough job of educating. I think the media has a big role to play. The influencer is the parent. This industry
seems to find an unusually large mention in this survey.
Yes, which is true, because we wanted to understand whether it is the professor, whether it is the parent, or whether it is that proverbial uncle who influences the candidate. Now, when the parent was the age of the child, this industry did not exist. So their knowledge is purely second hand. Second hand is fed therefore by press and media. And unfortunately, the media is not giving a balanced view of what the opportunities are. Yes, there are issues. I mean, where are there no issues? Working at night, yeah, the hospitals work at night. I mean, the number of people who came and told me they worked at night, and I asked them whether within their family and friends, all children are born only between 9 to 5 in the morning, and they look back and say, no, not really. And I said, oh, so you did it without a doctor, is it? No, we had a doctor. So that industry worked at night to get a kid into this world, but this industry working at night is a problem. So there is we need a balanced view of that, and the parent is reading a biased view, a negative view, but that is causing a lot of problems.
To balance this again, this also makes it sound like it's only a media problem.
No, the media is the major input to the parent, because we also, as a part of the study, we asked the parent that you have that perception, how do you have that perception? And it came out as media, and we spoke to media.
Yeah.
And the media came back and said, bad news is what sells, therefore we tend to project the bad news.
You have to you have to edit that.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Oh, but it's
universal concept.
It's a big problem. I can give you examples and examples of what has been blown up in media, where there is no shred of truth, no shred. I mean, unfortunately, an employee has an accident. A person has an accident in a shopping mall. But when it is a BPO employee, it gets reported that a BPO employee fell down from there. If it is not a BPO employee, it just happens to be one of the visitors to the mall fell down. I mean, is there Am I reading too much into it, or which way the media wants to position it, or which way we want to do it? So there are some challenges, and I think the study brings out the nature of the challenges and what we have to do.
So let's move on to the solutions now. So VK, let me begin with you. So what would you address? I mean, TCS employs 55,000 people in the BPO industry. So you're a large player and an interested player in what's coming out of this study. How do you see your role?
Absolutely. See, leave alone TCS. We are looking at it as what the 1 million employees in this industry are experiencing. And then we are also looking at the need for this industry to go from 1 million to 3 million, 4 million employees. There is huge potential. Also, do not forget that for every employee that is recruited by this IT and ITES industry, there are 6 to 7 other jobs get created in the ecosystem.
Right.
So it is a very lucrative industry. So it is incumbent upon Nasscom and the Nasscom BPM Council to understand what are some of the factors that are positive, what are some of the factors that need to get addressed. And the factors that are positive are people who have been with us for longer clearly see that they have made it, they have got exposure to multiple cultures, they have been challenged, and they have grown in their careers, etc. So we will probably use that pool to go to other people. That is one aspect. The second aspect is we clearly identify parents as an influence group. Very surprising. We will continue to work on that. Thirdly, we are also finding that the industry is only accessing the top 7 million households. There is a huge opportunity to tap the next 8 million households where the next 8 million households are seeing this as an aspirational career. So we will go after that. Anyway, we are spending huge amount of investment in training people. So it is just a matter of making sure whether it is from the first 7 million or the next 7 million, we will have to train the people anyway. So we will highlight the effort that this industry is putting in training people, which is not getting covered sufficiently. So we will cover that. Those are some of the things that.
So Pavan, I'm just going to come to you in a second about how your industry, which is legal services, faces this issue, and if at all you do. But before that, if I were to take a step back, the reason this study was done was to focus on the supply side. I mean, is that the reason? I mean, you're really, because you have a problem on the supply side and you're not getting good enough people, that you want to figure out how to fix it? Or is it something else?
It is not only supply side. We really wanted to understand what is in the minds of various stakeholders which are participating in this industry. And we wanted to study the existing employees. We wanted to study people who have left the industry. We wanted to understand who are the influencers. We want to talk to the parents. We also wanted to talk to the media. We access some of the media people who are very willing to sit with us and understand what this is all about. We talked to the government. And what came out is that cross-section, there are pockets that know very well about this industry. There are pockets that do not know anything about this industry. So we will focus on those blind spots or areas where we need to focus on. So that is the purpose of this study. It is broad-based. It is not only focused on supply chain, but it is focusing on the experience of people who are working in this industry.
Right.
So that's the industry.
Right. So Pavan, you run a sort of multi-location US, UK, India legal services company, legal services offshoring, outsourcing company. So how are you seeing this whole survey and from the kind of challenges you face on talent and so on?
It's not just existing employees and employees who are no longer in the system, but also the parents, media. So I think it's extremely valuable. Specifically from a legal services company, and we have largely lawyers and engineers working with us. So it's a slightly different profile of people. We are finding that the single biggest question that they have is, what is my long-term career path within the legal services industry? So in that respect, it's actually very similar to the larger BPM survey, right? And unless you are able to explicitly state it, right, they are not satisfied. So this is a journey that we are going through, and we as a company initiated the Great Places to Work survey last year, and it's a first in the LPO industry. No one does it, and the same messaging came out again through a different channel. Our employees are telling us that we'd like to know where we are going, so that can we build this as an alternate career to being in the law firm, for example.
What's the sort of consistent answer that you've given them over the years on?
So frankly, till last year, this was not something that we even knew right, formally, that was an issue. I'm specifically now talking of the LPO industry, right? As it has become evident to us, what we are now doing is explicitly laying down that these are, for example, 3 or 4 growth paths that you have, and this is the kind of performance level, this is the kind of skill level that you need, and here is what we will do to train you in these, right? Because again, like the BPM industry, I think all of us put in an enormous amount of investment in skilling people, right? And I think the big advantage that we have in LPO is that work-life balance, which in this group is another very important factor that came out in the study, right, is certainly a lot superior to going and working in the conventional legal industry and working 14, 16 hours in the early part of your career, right? So, and that is something which came out as something which is really appreciated.
Right. But what are the chances, and I'll use this again as a continuing example, what are the chances of, let's say, people migrating out of the profession of the LPO industry to mainstream at a later stage? I mean, this is treated as a general question.
So what we are finding is that, let's take a very specific example. In United Lex, there are a number of people who, after spending about 4 to 5 years with us, are looking to go in-house into corporates. They're not going into law firms, but they're going into corporate jobs, and that attracts them. And to us, this is a very viable career path.
And they're able to do that. There's no,
in fact, there is a strong demand for it because the kind of exposure they get in global processes, global companies, right, is extremely valued. So we have started saying that we can actually make this a formal channel for you, that you have growth path opportunities within United Lex, or you can go into large corporates who are operating in India in their in-house, and we can facilitate that process for you.
Right. So that's a good example. I was going to come to you,
I think
Raman,
one point that Pavan made, and I think it's very important across the industry, which tends to get forgotten because we focus more on the negative side rather than the positive aspects. It's the work-life balance. If we are going to run a shift for 8 hours, after that somebody else is going to use that desk. The chances that the employee will be staying on after that are very limited. And therefore the work-life balance in terms of the number of hours that people spend for the salary and therefore what they earn on a per month basis as compared to the other industries, and if you balance it with work-life, there is no comparable industry to the BPM industry on that. And that understanding, again, we've not done a good enough job of highlighting it to the employee. But the employees, I've met enormous number of employees who've moved on into other jobs, and then they come back to say, at least here I was working 8 to 9 hours, including my cab ride, it was maybe 10. But you know, now I'm having to work 14 hours and I don't even get as much salary, or I'm not meeting my girlfriend or my boyfriend or my wife and my kids and everything. So there are aspects of what is coming out of this study is there are aspects that we've not been able to evangelize. So while the 4-year plus, and VK referred to that, the 4-year plus feels that there is a future, 1 to 4 year people do not feel that there is a future. Now there is a particular exposure that the 4-year plus person has. If we are able to duplicate that exposure to 1 to 4 years, a proportion of them, maybe not all of them, a proportion of them will be able to see a long-term career. And you know, it is a pyramid. Any industry is a pyramid. Not everybody is going to get promoted. Not everybody is going to become a vice president. And today the aspiration of the employee is very different. Rather than focusing on some of the learnings that they have to do to aspire for the next job, they think they are in the wrong company, or they think they are in the wrong industry. And that is where the coaching, counseling comes in and has a big role to play.
Let me ask you a layman's question here. How many people are actually doing, let's say, the night shift voice job, which in some ways I would imagine is at the lower end of the pecking order?
How many people
are doing voice night shifts?
I think about 40 odd percent of our revenues overall come from the customer interaction. Okay. It is global, so there is Australia and there is the West Coast and the East Coast. So within that, I would say 60 odd percent of the people would be working. But to say that night jobs are only voice
No, that's no,
is,
I agree.
is,
I'm
is
just
erroneous.
asking, yeah, yeah.
Because there are a lot of non-voice jobs that are also
Happening
at night, yes.
Okay, so is that, and do you see this mix changing as you also, I mean, which is also the larger question, I mean, which way is the industry going in terms of the kind of work it will do?
So as I said, I've had the opportunity to meet with a lot of medical profession people and ask them whether they are considering giving up night jobs for it, and the answer is no. It is a part of their culture, it is a part of their DNA. I've spoken to hotel people. A lot of things that happen in hotels, like the one that we are sitting in right now, happens at night. And are they considering changing that? No, they are not. It is a global phenomena. They work at night. I traveled in a train, you know, it didn't work only during the day.
No, I
it
get
flew
that.
at
I
night.
get that. Yeah, yeah.
So
No, but-
there is an aspect of bringing that culture and that understanding, which we've not done a good enough job for people to understand that it is a shift-based job,
No, no,
and some of the
this is a
shifts will
given.
be at
No,
night.
no, my question is from the other end. I'm saying that your clients are evolving in a certain direction. The kind of business that they will give you and you will take, will that entail the same level or proportion of work timings and work-life balance that we are seeing today, or could it change?
Some of the growth will happen day India time, because ready to take it to the next level, being available when they open in the morning, is definitely a value proposition. But will it eliminate a 24/7 industry? I don't see that being eliminated.
Fair enough, and that's also an opportunity in your mind. I mean,
It is.
Right,
There are
yeah.
people who can't get jobs. I mean, hello. You know, there are so many. It's a million people, it's a million families that are being supported by this industry, and a lot of them, if this industry did not exist, I've spoken to the women folk. So, what would you have done if you were not here? And they candidly tell me they would have done after their BCom, they would have done a master's, they would have got married, and they would have sat rearing children. That is not their objective. Now they are financially independent. So we have added to some things of something that did not exist. And as we correctly call it, a perception study to understand what the mindset
Yeah.
is on perceptions. We now need to work on some of those, because some of the perceptions are valid, some of them are erroneous.
fair enough.
I think
So, yeah.
an important factor is that for the skill that people bring, I think what the industry compensates is very attractive.
Exactly.
And this is very important. This is not an industry which is for everyone.
Right.
Whether it is legal services, whether it is analytics, or whether it is the customer interaction industry, right? Someone who wants to be a trial lawyer and be litigating in the Supreme Court, the legal services industry is not for them, right? And I think it's very, very important to realize that there is a very large population of people who are graduates or people who are lawyers, right, for whom this is the right fit, and for the skill that they bring, they would not get a better opportunity.
Yeah, and
Right?
if they wanted to move out, as you said, they could. I mean,
The
to a-
option exists,
yeah, it's
and
choices.
if anything,
Yeah.
they're better professionals for that.
Yeah, right. I think you've answered that question pretty well, and I'm sure this applies across the board. It's not just legal services, but it would apply to
Correct, right
I mean-
across.
I mean, you see a lot of, you use hotel as an example. There is migration between the hotel industry and the BPO industry.
Or media.
Yeah, or media for that matter. So, VK, I'm going to sum up now quickly. VK, three things that you would like to focus on in order to address some of the issues that have been raised here. I mean, as whether it's as TCS or as part of the BPM Council.
Or as the person who's led this study.
Okay.
We will communicate clearly to the academic groups and the student groups on the possibilities in this industry. That is one major aspect. Second is we will include parents in some way by which we are able to leverage them, and by which we will be able to get them to understand really what this industry is all about. The third focus area is actually sitting down with the media and helping the media to help us communicate both the above points, which is communicating to the students group as well as communicating to the parents group. These are the three broad directional messages that are emerging from the study for us.
Okay. Pavan?
Specifically for the legal services industry, the first is being very explicit about career pathing, long-term career pathing. Second is going and engaging very actively with law schools, right? So that very early on they understand that this is an alternate career path. And third is we did not realize how much influence parents have. So bringing them into our offices so that they understand what their children are actually getting exposed to.
Okay.
I would say more of the
Sum up.
same, but the career pathing piece to say that million people industry, $20 billion, all in 20 years, from 0 to 20 billion, and there is no career path. That is a big gap in the understanding, and bridging that gap would be a single-minded focus to bring that up. And again, the study brings out why this gap is there. And some of the reasons why this gap is there are actually pretty nonsensical. It was too easy for me to get this job, therefore there is no future for me. So we
But
need
that,
to
that also
play
would have
on
changed,
the
isn't
mindset.
it? I mean, the industry is matured. The job market is much tighter than it
The
ever was.
appetite is much larger than the supply. So we are willing to grab half-baked things and say that we'll bake it in our personal ovens. And that is a reality. But does it mean that there is no future? That is a misnomer. So we need to be able to correct that, and a lot is linked, whether it is, as VK said, whether it is the parent side, whether it is the professor side or the academic side, whether it is partnering with media. It is to do with the mindset of which way what the future holds.
Right, gentlemen, we've run out of time. Thank you very much for
Thank
speaking
you very
with us.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have time for on this discussion on the Nasscom BPM perception study. Thanks for watching.